ZONA Digital. Meu nome é Gabriela Dias, eu trabalhei pelos últimos quase 20 anos como editora, tanto de produtos digitais quanto de produtos impressos. Trabalhei com livro, trabalhei com CD-ROM, com site, e eu gosto de brincar que eu tô velha até para esse negócio de tecnologia, porque afinal de contas eu fiz CD-ROM, né? Alguém aqui ainda lembra do CD-ROM? E na verdade hoje em dia eu atuo como consultora, justamente ajudando as empresas editoriais e também as empresas de educação a fazer essa transição para o mundo digital da maneira menos difícil possível, né? E a gente está aqui hoje para falar com o Jazz. O Jazz tem uma iniciativa super bacana e inovadora na área de autopublicação, né? Ou self-publishing, como eles falam em inglês. Essa é uma tendência que no Brasil, até pouco tempo atrás, não se falava muito, na verdade, e embora a gente tenha casos muito interessantes de autopublicação, ou de pelo menos autores que começaram a carreira se autopublicando, né? Eu fiz a minha monografia, o meu TCC na USP exatamente sobre isso, sobre autopublicação, um caso específico de uma autora específica chamada Sônia Hirsch, talvez alguns de vocês conheçam. E na época eu estudei bastante esse assunto, até em função, né, claro, da monografia, e fiz uma linha do tempo, enfim, desse tipo de publicação no Brasil. E claro, a gente tem alguns casos notórios de autores e editores, né, ou de autores que se envolveram com uma atividade editorial muito. O maior exemplo é Monteiro Lobato, né, que talvez tenha sido o maior autor-editor no início da primeira metade do século XX. Na segunda metade do século XX, talvez o Fernando Sabino, que teve uma atividade editorial também bem significativa, não só editorial, ele fez outras coisas também, mas era um autor que se envolvia muito com a própria publicação, palpitava em tudo, projeto de capa, enfim. Tem um caso bem recente, que é a Lígia Bojunga Nunes, na área de literatura infanto-juvenil, uma autora super best-seller, consagrada, que optou por tirar os livros dela das editoras comerciais e passou a fazer autopublicação faz alguns anos. Inclusive, hoje em dia, todos os livros dela têm uma certa carinha, tem uma espécie de projeto de coleção, né? Que é uma coisa que as editoras comerciais começaram a fazer só agora para a literatura infanto-juvenil, principalmente a Moderna, né? A Moderna e a Salamandra. E a gente tem esses casos mais antigos de autores, grandes autores brasileiros, que começaram se autopublicando, como o Drummond. Drummond se autopublicou, o primeiro livro do Drummond, ele criou um selo, o Pindorama, né? Que na verdade era um selo que não existia, e ele fez 500 cópias do primeiro livro dele, ele pagou essas cópias. O Manuel Bandeira também, que começou a se autopublicando, pagou as primeiras 200 cópias do primeiro livro dele, e assim eles conseguiram espaço no mercado, né? Então, em um determinado momento, ou por uma determinada geração de autores no Brasil, a autopublicação, no fundo, era uma maneira de conseguir uma vitrine, né? De conseguir alguma visibilidade, de se destacar, para aí sim você conseguir um contrato numa grande editora. Depois, mais recentemente, alguns autores começaram a ver que, na verdade, não precisava ser só isso, que eles realmente podiam prescindir completamente da editora e fazer uma operação própria, como foi o caso da Lígia Bojunga, que é o caso talvez mais recente, embora tenha esse caso também da Sônia Hirsch, que é uma autora menor, ou pelo menos uma autora, não menor, desculpa a palavra foi infeliz, mas uma autora de outra área, né? Não é uma autora de ficção, é uma autora da área de não ficção. E tudo isso para dizer que, na verdade, qual é a grande dificuldade, né, da autopublicação? É a questão da cadeia, e por isso essa palestra tem a ver com cadeia editorial, ou romper a cadeia editorial. Por que os autores não consideravam, ou poucos autores consideravam, o o caminho da autopublicação no mundo impresso, né, no mundo analógico, porque você tinha barreiras muito grandes de entrada, dificuldades concretas, físicas, muito grandes, especialmente a questão da distribuição. Então, para você conseguir colocar o seu livro, o seu produto, numa livraria, pelo Brasil, principalmente no Brasil, um país de dimensões continentais e com poucas livrarias e mal distribuídas, enfim, era uma operação muito difícil. Tanto que a Sônia Hirsch, ela foi para a autopublicação porque justamente ela fazia o grosso da venda dos livros dela ou diretamente em palestras ou através de lojas de produtos naturais e farmácias alternativas, como farmácias homeopáticas, né? Então, ela, na verdade, partiu para esse negócio porque ela vendia mais assim do que a editora por quem ela publicou o primeiro livro, que era a Rocco, vendia nos canais tradicionais. E aí ela pensou, por que eu vou ficar ganhando só 10% então do bolo, se eu posso ter controle sobre tudo, controle editorial completo, controle autoral completo, e eu consigo distribuir e vender muito melhor do que eles, né? E ela foi para a autopublicação por causa disso, porque para ela a questão da distribuição não era uma barreira, era o contrário. Era uma facilidade, era um ponto a favor que ela tinha. Porque os livros dela são sobre alimentação e saúde, basicamente, e entraram muito naquela onda macrobiótica do início dos anos 80, a onda das lojas de produtos naturais que estava começando no Brasil naquele tempo, né? E a outra questão, que é uma barreira que dificulta a entrada dos autores nesse tipo de publicação, é a questão da impressão. Hoje em dia, claro, é muito mais fácil. Em qualquer esquina você faz a impressão de uma coisa por demanda, o número de cópias que você quiser, 10 cópias, 15, 20, 1000. Mas antigamente era muito difícil no esquema de produção industrial das gráficas. Antigamente, nem tão antigamente assim, né, mas no século passado, e isso era um custo significativo também. Então, para o Drummond pagar 200 cópias, ou o Bandeira pagar 500, ou vice-versa, agora já não me lembro ao certo, isso era um custo significativo que o autor tinha que tirar do próprio bolso. E depois ele tinha que conseguir colocar esses livros de alguma maneira em um lugar que as pessoas fossem ver, né? E depois receber o dinheiro das vendas, quer dizer, tem toda uma questão logística que é uma grande barreira de entrada, ou costumava ser uma grande barreira de entrada, no livro físico. E a questão com o livro digital é que, na verdade, ele remove um pouco essas barreiras e muda a cadeia do livro. E, portanto, a gente vai aqui falar sobre romper a cadeia editorial, com o Jazz, que é uma pessoa que tem uma plataforma que não só possibilita a autopublicação, mas faz isso de uma maneira inovadora, né? Porque tem outras ferramentas de autopublicação, talvez até um pouco mais antigas, né? Do que o Puzzlush. Tem o Lulu, tem o Author Solutions, que acabou de ser comprado ano passado, inclusive pela Penguin. Tem outras soluções aí na internet que você pode fazer autopublicação. Mas a maneira do Puzzlush de fazer isso é que é uma maneira muito inovadora, tem a ver com essa questão do crowdfunding, que aí ele vai explicar um pouquinho melhor para a gente. E mais do que isso, ele tem uma visão nesse sentido, né, de como é que essas duas coisas se juntam e por que isso faz sentido. Então eu quero passar a palavra para o Jazz, sem mais delongas.
Hello. Hi, everyone. Boa noite. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. So yeah, we're going to get started. Just going to wait for 1 second for the presentation to come up, but we're going to get started by talking a little bit about publishing 2.0, as I like to call it. It's sort of the next era of digital publishing, and where I see the digital revolution heading. Obviously, we've seen a lot happen in the digital space in publishing so far, but it's only just the beginning. All right, so an overview of the presentation. I just wanted to highlight where we're going to be going tonight. The first thing I'm going to be talking about is crowdsourcing, generally, what it is, explaining it, and how it affects the publishing industry. Then I'm going to speak briefly about PubSlush, my organization, and how it helps authors, how it fits into the publishing chain, and all that. Then we're going to speak about the digitization and the evolution of publishing. Then I'm going to go over a few disruptive concepts that I've come across in my time in publishing, and I think have many implications for the industry. And then we'll wrap up with where I think it's all heading. Okay, so crowdsourcing. I don't know if everyone here is familiar with crowdsourcing, but obviously we've seen a lot of this type of technology in the past, even 10 years, but we've seen it in different industries and we've seen it in many different capacities. Crowdsourcing has three main components, and I've outlined them here, a sort of definition I took from the internet. The first component is crowdsourcing is a type of participative online activity in which an individual, the crowdsourcer, proposes a problem or something to a group of individuals and they undertake the task together. The second component is the crowd, or the crowdsourcees, as they're referred to. They participate in some way, bringing either their expertise, they bring money, they bring knowledge, something that they bring, and it always entails a mutual benefit. And then the third and final part is that the crowdsourcee receives the satisfaction of a given type of need. So whether the person contributing to the project receives an economic reward, or they receive, just something for self-esteem to make themselves feel better that they were involved in a project, or feel proud that they participated in a project, something. And then the crowdsourcer obtains the tools and the resources they need to bring this project to life. So these are the three components. And crowdsourcing, I'm going to use this word sort of interchangeably with the word crowdfunding, and crowdfunding just specifies that crowdsourcing with money. So I wanted to go over a few examples of where we've seen crowdfunding or crowdsourcing previously. The first one I wanted to mention is probably the most famous one in the US is American Idol in music, and this is really the first one that we saw, the idea that if you wanted to become a famous singer, you could go in front of a panel of judges and be selected to participate based on the quality of your voice. And then once you've made it through a certain number of rounds, you would go on to be selected by the public. So the American public essentially gets to decide by voting who is going to be the next superstar singer. Another example is film, and this is a more recent one, Amazon Studios. So Amazon.com operates this sort of tool called Amazon Studios, where as a filmmaker, a screenwriter, anyone involved in the filmmaking process can submit to Amazon a script or a pilot of some kind. And basically, it goes to the crowd first. So it's the opposite of American Idol. In American Idol, the crowd is the last one to decide. In Amazon Studios, they're the first one to decide. They give input on the script. They decide, is it something they would like to watch? Do they have feedback of how they think the script should be developed, what characters they like, etc. And then Amazon actually comes in after this feedback and decides, okay, we've received great feedback, and now we're going to turn this pilot or this script into an actual film. Another example that's gained a lot of traction in the US in fashion is Threadless. And Threadless is basically a community of designers, fashion designers, who upload designs, and once again the crowd is able to decide which ones they like best, and once they get enough feedback and enough votes, then it goes into production and these designs from fashion designers become a reality. And the final example I wanted to mention that we've seen have a lot of success is Quirky, and this is for invention. So this is actually probably my most favorite of these examples, is where as someone who wants to create a product of some kind, so maybe you want to create a way to connect the computer to the screen, you can outline your ideas for it, how it will work, what it entails, how you envision it coming to life, and then you basically open it up to a community, and they can give you input. They can say, well, that probably won't work, or maybe you should do it this way. And it's this very collaborative process to have inventions. And Quirky actually works in 2 stages. So the first stage is the input stage, where you get feedback on your invention. And the second stage is where people actually are able to pre-order it. So maybe now you've gotten this great feedback, but now you actually need to have a certain number of people order the product in advance of it coming out. So you need 1,000 people to say, I would buy that product and I'm going to pay for it. Here's my credit card information. When it comes out, if it comes out, I'm willing to buy it. And once you reach that threshold of pre-orders, it goes into production and it becomes a reality. So why crowdsourcing is perfect for publishing? In all the examples I've mentioned so far where we've seen successful crowdfunding, publishing is surprisingly not there. And it's interesting because publishing, I think, is probably the most perfect or the most well-suited industry for crowdsourcing. And I think the fact that it's not there yet is just the fact that publishing is so behind a lot of the other creative industries in terms of development and getting on board with new technology. So publishing versus other creative industries, why it's best suited. So the first thing is the cost. So the cost of publishing a book, even a best-selling book, one that's published by a major publisher, it doesn't even compare in terms of the cost for a major motion picture, hundreds of millions of dollars that go into just the production of a movie. And of course, you would never see this type of money being put into a book, which is just because it happens to require less money. So having a lower cost makes it more ideal for publishing because it's easier to reach this threshold early on. The next one is components. So the components, if you look at what goes into producing a film or producing a music album, you have producers, you have photography directors, regular directors, actors, casting directors. I mean, the list goes on and on and on. You see at the end of a movie how long this list is. With a book, it's a little more simple. There's an editor, there's a designer, a publicist, a format designer. The list is not so long. Of course, you can have additional people, but it's quite short compared to other creative industries. The next one is skill, why publishing is more suited to crowdsourcing. If you look at making a film, you don't often see people say, I'm just going to go out and produce the next big blockbuster movie, where you often see people say, oh, well, I'm going to sit down and write a book. I'm not saying that it's necessarily easier to write a book, but it's the mentality of human beings that it's easier to sit down and write a book than it is to go out and record an album or to make a movie, etc. And the final reason why I think publishing is more suited towards crowdsourcing is the fact that the product is very tangible. You can understand a book much more than you can understand the final product of a movie or of music. If you look at American Idol in the United States, you see often the winner of American Idol doesn't go on to have a huge amount of success often because it's not so easy to understand when they win what is the style of the album they're going to record, what is the type of music. Whereas with a book and with PubSlush and crowdfunding for books, you can pretty easily understand. You can have a summary of the book, you can know what it's about, you can have a sample of the book to understand the pages. It's just like buying a book at a bookstore, reading the back of the book, reading a sample, etc. So it makes it a bit more tangible than other industries.
Posso acrescentar uma coisa? May I add something?
Yes, of course.
Also, eu vou falar em português e aí e também tem essa questão, eu acho, dos aspectos, ressaltar essa questão dos aspectos produtivos, porque nesses outros exemplos de crowdfunding que você deu, por exemplo, o Threadless ou o Quirky, o produto final, como você falou, não só as pessoas talvez não entendam exatamente o que ele vai ser, mas às vezes ele é difícil de produzir, né? Eu já li sobre casos que as pessoas conseguiram o funding via crowdfunding nesse tipo de iniciativa e depois não conseguiram produzir. Mesmo tendo o dinheiro, não conseguiram atender aquele determinado número de pedidos para um tipo de produto específico, porque às vezes você tem dificuldades, mesmo técnicas, né? Enquanto que em publishing, como eu falei, hoje em dia imprimir é uma coisa muito fácil de fazer, a impressão por demanda facilitou demais a a impressão física, e no livro digital, na verdade, essa barreira nem existe, né?
Yes, I could not agree with that more, and thank you for adding that. You know, I think it definitely goes to show many times in crowdfunding we've seen on other sites that people are not able to produce because they didn't understand how much money it would cost. You know, they raise $100,000 for an invention, and then they realize, oh, this is going to cost me $1 million to make, and then where does that leave everyone? With a book, yeah, I mean, maybe you only raise, you think your book is going to cost you $5,000, and you only raise $5,000, and it ends up costing $10,000, but you can pretty much always decrease those costs. At the end of the day, a book, you know, you can find an editor for a price that you can afford, you can find a designer for the price you can afford, and it's much more manageable than some of these other projects that physically require an actual dollar amount, whereas publishing is a bit more, it's not so clear how much it will cost. Okay, so now I wanted to talk a little bit about what is PubSlush, what my company does. So basically we're, in a sentence, a global crowdfunded publishing platform for authors. So what this means is that platform is the key word here. We are not self-publishing, we're not traditional publishing, we're a platform to help authors, however they wish to publish, go on and do so. So there's three components. It's to raise money, obviously the most important one, which I've been talking about. To gauge readership, this is a super important one that we love, is giving authors who use our site the opportunity to understand who exactly is their audience and to engage with them, to talk with their readers and to have a successful relationship with them. And then the third and final component is to publish successfully. As I said, we provide a platform so that you can then go on to afford professional publishing services and self-publish, or so that you can go on to entice a traditional publisher by saying, I just raised $20,000, I know exactly who my audience is. It shows the publisher that you have an audience and that there's a market for your book, which of course is quite important in this very competitive market. And then the secondary component of PubSlush, the organization, is we operate a social crowdsourced publisher, which just means we have our own publishing imprint. If we see books that are on the site that are doing well, that we like, then we offer a deal. As any traditional publisher would, we say, you know, these are the terms of the deal, we'll distribute you, we'll pay for editing, designing, we'll make you a professional product, and then for every book that we sell, we donate a children's book to a child in need. So that's the publishing component of PubSlush. So how it works. So it's very simple. Authors, they submit a manuscript, a summary of their manuscript, and an excerpt. So we say like 250-word summary and maybe like a 5 to 10 page sample of your book. You set a fundraising goal, how much money do you want to raise, and you decide how long you're going to run the campaign, 30 days, 60 days, etc. So then readers come on and they financially support their favorite submission, so in exchange for a reward. So as a reader, I say, I'll give you $10 to bring this book to life, and in exchange, I'll get something. Though something that I get is determined by the author. So as the author, I might say, for $10, I'll give you a copy of the ebook. It's a common reward. And then the final component is, obviously, authors raise the money, and they get these analytics, as we call them, to publish successfully via any publishing route that they prefer. The components of PubSlush. So it's a platform that's optimized for authors at the end of the day. We have four main components that we thought, we looked at the publishing industry and we said, what four components do authors or publishers need to successfully publish books? So we think their fundraising, their market analytics, their professional publishing services, and their guidance. Fundraising and market analytics, as I already discussed. A services marketplace just means that we provide resources to connect authors with professional publishing freelance professionals. So whether that be an editor, a designer, a marketer, etc., they can connect with them and find quality services. And guidance in the form of, we have an author education center. It's not, you know, the most developed guidance you're going to get. It's not a step-by-step process. But it is tutorials about taking the next steps, how to find an editor, how to design properly, how to get your ISBN, all things that authors might not be aware of. So the first component, fundraising, we think is super important because we want authors to be able to create a high quality product. And the only way to create a high quality product is with money. The bane of self-publishing is that the quality of it is poor, and we believe this is because there's no money. If you don't have enough money to hire a good editor, of course your book is going to suffer in quality. The second component of fundraising is to replace advances, and this is something that only applies obviously if you're going traditional publishing, or it could apply for self-publishing. Say, maybe the reason you want to be traditionally published, you think you'll get $10,000, I mean maybe $1 million, who knows, however much in advances these days. So this is kind of a way to replace that expectation from publishing. And finally, the most important component of fundraising is tangible demand measurement. And what this means is that, as I was explaining earlier with American Idol, it's a vote. Someone calls in and they say, I want to vote for this person. Then when this person wins, a lot of times they don't end up becoming super successful because a vote has no value. It's very unclear what it's worth. So with PubSlush, we actually have created the system where it's crowdfunding, and you can know, like if someone is voting for you, they're spending $5. That's how much their vote is worth. So it allows you to quantify the demand for your book. Market analytics, this is an equally important component of PubSlush, and it has to do with the fact that in publishing, there's not a lot of data science being used. I remember being at a panel for a best-selling book by HarperCollins, and when the panel was asked how they decided to market the book, this is a best-selling book, how they decided, they basically answered that they had guessed. They had used their experience, they didn't really know, they didn't have a set marketing budget. It was, they kind of went with whatever felt right. So we wanted to introduce into publishing a way to understand the market better, and then to spend your marketing money a little more effectively, especially in the beginning, as opposed to just guessing and hoping for the best. So we collect information that's very actionable, simple information that you can use on Amazon to market your book, such as age, gender, demographics, where the traffic source is coming from, where people are clicking, etc. You can also use market analytics for a focus group or to gain feedback, as I was saying earlier, to engage with readers. It's very easy to talk with your readers to say, like, oh, I'm thinking of doing this with a character, like, what do you think of this? And maybe not that you have to take the suggestion, but a way to engage them. And then targeted marketing, as I was mentioning, a way to when you first publish your book, to have information about who the audience is and to do it successfully. So this kind of summarizes it, the PubSlush platform, that we have just these 4 components, and we believe that they're the key to success and the key to going wherever you prefer in the publishing world, breaking down the barriers that once existed, etc. Okay, so now I'm going to move into the digitization of publishing and sort of the current ways we've seen the digitization and where I think we will see digitization. So the most obvious one I think is format, though the fact that ebooks exist now, or have existed for years. That was really the first, or maybe not the first, but one of the most important changes. So format we've already seen. Production, the fact that we have print on demand now. I mean, this is an unbelievable advancement that you used to have to print thousands of books at one time, and now if you can print one. Accessibility. So this is the idea of self-publishing, that with you can easily access these publishing channels, that you can now print your book, that you can find an editor, that you can do it on your own. It used to be that publishing was very much gate-kept industry. You had to have an agent, a publisher, in order to find success. Now it's much more accessible. Distribution, as we were mentioning, distribution is insanely easy with digitization. It's one click and you can be available in Apple and Amazon, Kobo, all of these people for such a small amount of money and available to global audiences. And then also with audience connection, we've seen digitization in terms of social media, where authors can now speak directly to their followers via Twitter, via Facebook, have this sort of open dialogue. Of course, this usually tends to be once a book is actually published, and there's a way to engage afterwards, whereas with PubSlush, we're trying to engage readers before. Now in the future, I think data science, as I mentioned, is going to be one of the biggest ones. This is what PubSlush is trying to do, to provide all this data around book publishing. The idea is, we say, to marry instinct with insight, gut feeling with insight. The next one is inventory. I'm going to speak in a little bit about concepts that are really changing the game for inventory in terms of the fact that there's no waste. If a book is wanted, it's available in that moment, and there's not thousands of books sitting in a warehouse any longer, or the idea that hopefully this will happen. The next one is consumption. How we're actually consuming books. I mean, we've seen it's very similar, even though we now have ebooks, the way it always was. If you just read a book, you buy a full book, you read it all the way through. It's the only way to consume a book. I think we'll see different ways of consuming books, whether you read them in chapters, whether they're serialized, broken up into sections. I think we'll see some variation in the way of consumption. Discoverability. Also, discoverability hasn't had huge advances. It's the way you discover a book is from hearing it from a friend, from maybe seeing it on a bookshelf in a bookstore. How do you discover great new books? There's not a lot of technology behind it. Now with Amazon, with Goodreads, a concept I'm going to speak about briefly in a moment, they're introducing technology into recommending books to you, and it's becoming very, very effective. And then the last one is sharing. Ebooks, we came and we have these great digital books now. It's such an exciting advancement for publishing. However, the whole point of digital content, of all digital content, is that it's easily shareable. If you look at social networks, the whole reason they function is because people are constantly sharing different information. Somehow, in creating ebooks, we forgot to make them shareable. You never see people sharing this, an excerpt from an ebook online because it's not built into the capabilities. And so I think we're going to start to see a lot of that. So now the evolving roles of publishers and agents, given these changes that I'm mentioning and what I think we'll start to see. If you look at the old roles of publishers and agents, it's a gatekeeper, as I mentioned. This was the most gate-kept industry there is. It's very prestigious if you have a publisher. It means that you were selected from this top group of people. It's not the case anymore. I mean, it's great to have a publisher, but often great books are found self-publishing, not with a publisher. Gatekeeping is definitely sort of tingling away. Publishing services. It used to be that if you wanted a great editor, you had to go to Random House, to Penguin, to find these amazing professionals. Now they're available, freelance professionals. They're not making enough money in their traditional jobs that they're taking on freelance roles, and they're available to you. Cultivator is the idea that it's up to a publisher to decide what books get published, the same thing as gatekeeping, and to be the ones who are sort of influencing the literary world. Now, no, it's people who really want to read and to be involved in the publishing process. They're the ones who will influence the literary world. And finally, financer. It used to be that if you wanted to publish a book successfully, you needed money to do it, and you needed someone to pay for it, so it was the publisher. Well, now we have things like PubSlush and other crowdfunding platforms to introduce a way to acquire money if you don't already have it. So I think that the question here is will publishers survive? Of course they will, as long as they adapt, and the ways that they should be adapting, I believe, are, the first is providing guidance and assistance. So a lot of times it's the idea that you want to be traditionally published because you have someone who can guide you along in the process, who has experience in the industry, who can assist you with, making your book tour, who can do all this stuff. Same thing with expertise. This is all the publishers' roles, I think, will become more that they understand the industry in more depth, that they have more knowledge, that they can, once again, guide you. And the last one, I think, is management. It's interesting because, I always think of if you're the CEO of a company, whenever you start out, you don't start with an assistant, with a team of people to help you. You have to do it on your own. You have to make yourself successful, working all the time. And then once you find success, of course, you hire an assistant, you hire a team. I think it's similar in publishing. If you work really hard on your own, marketing your book, writing your book, doing everything on your own, then of course once you reach a certain level of success and you're busier and you have more money coming in, then hire an assistant. In this case, an assistant is just a publisher because they will handle a lot of those roles. Okay, now I'm going to speak briefly about some disruptive concepts that I've come across and that I think are really exciting, and in a few different areas. Distribution, inventory, discoverability, consumption and sharing, and market analytics. So the first one is BookBaby, and this is in distribution. So this is like a one-stop ebook destination. It's a way to distribute your book completely digitally. As I was mentioning earlier, one click. I think it costs like $99 US, and you can be in every bookstore. They'll format it for you, do the conversion, make a beautiful book. They do cover design, digital conversion, ISBN registration, which can sometimes be a little daunting, even though it's not so difficult, and distribution. So this is really this is like an example of one of the companies that have turned distribution upside down and made it much more accessible. The next one is Espresso. I really love this company, Inventory. So this is like the idea of a book vending machine. So it's books printed in minutes that you can pick up immediately or you can have delivered. The idea that you can walk up to like a vending machine and type in like the title of a book, and it will be printed and bound immediately in this moment, and then dropped into the slot, and you can pick it up and go. I think this is like the coolest thing because so many books are just sitting in bookstores being returned. It's a huge pain to authors, to publishers. It's quite inconvenient. So with this, no inventory, immediate delivery, no labor costs. I mean, there's so much labor cost goes into the physical production of books, and this is all digital. And it can be used for publishers and self-publishers. So, if you are published by a traditional house, they can easily get into this program. And the same if you're self-published, it's very accessible and available to you as well. Okay, the next one is Goodreads, also a company I really love, and one that focuses on discoverability, among other things. But Goodreads is the largest online reading community. I think they have something like 7 million active users of just book lovers. Basically, they have this thing that's called a recommendation engine, and it's super effective. It combines its proprietary algorithm, analyzes 20 billion data points to predict which books you would like to read. So I've actually used this before, and I've been shocked by the results. It analyzes your buying behavior from Amazon, from Kobo, wherever you're buying books, Barnes & Noble, and it is able to determine like your reading preferences, what you type in. So I can say like, oh, I like Harry Potter, I like whoever, and that in tandem with the buying behavior that you've already done, it's able to generate recommendations, and it's extremely effective. And I've purchased books based on this recommendation engine, and I've been blown away by the quality. And I think we'll start to see this among other booksellers as well. The next one I wanted to discuss is 24 Symbols. So this is in the category of consumption and sharing. I have two cases in this category actually. So this is a service to read digital books on the internet in a subscription model. So it's very similar to Spotify. I don't know if everyone is familiar with Spotify for music. It's called freemium, and the idea is that you can listen to unlimited songs by paying like $10 a month. And you can have them on your computer for always you to listen, and this is the idea of this for books. It's actually similar to Netflix in movies as well. It's cloud-based, so you don't have to have them all on your computer. You can easily access them from wherever you are, and there's lots of social integration, so you can share easily. And as I was mentioning, the idea that you can't share your books now with 24 Symbols. You can simply, highlight a quote that you like from a book, or highlight a paragraph and share it to Facebook, to Twitter, wherever. The next one is BattleBox, and also in the category of consumption and sharing. You can read any book or any part of any book on any device. So this is interesting because maybe if you don't want to read the full part of a book, it's very simple to just read a section or to read a chapter to see if it's something you like, and then you can buy the whole book. So you pay as you go. It's also cloud-based. And in the way of sharing, it's really cool because they have a financial incentive sharing. So if I were to recommend a book to a friend and then they purchase it, I actually earn 25% of the sale price. So this is like probably the best reason to share a book, is if you're going to be paid for it. So this I think is very innovative. And then the final one I wanted to discuss is WriterCube, and this is marketing analytics. This is similar to what I was saying with PubSlush, how we have a big a focus on analytics. However, this is after your book is published. So once you publish your book, it's a do-it-yourself app for authors to help them market more effectively. You get these analytics, where your book is selling, where it's trending on social media, things that will help you to better target your marketing campaigns. There's a goal tracker, so you say, okay, I have this goal for the book this month. I wanna go on a book tour here. I wanna sell more books in this location, and it helps you to manage your goals and to achieve them. And finally, similar to PubSlush, this education center, but for post-publishing, how-tos and resources for once you're actually in the industry, ideas how to market more, etc. Okay, so the implications of these models, obviously they all have quite a lot. The biggest one I think is there's no middleman. So, traditionally publishing is the idea of author, agent, publisher, reader. So now it's cutting out the agent, publisher, maybe not cutting out, but maybe moving them up or moving them down away from this direct connection between authors and readers, and really making those two the most important parts of the chain. Once inaccessible functions are now accessible, this is the most important thing. The fact that now with PubSlush, with Goodreads, with all these new concepts that are coming out, all these functions of publishing that were once quite difficult to access are easily accessible. Self-publishing set the bar for, I think Gabriela mentioned earlier, Lulu and Author Solutions. They were the first ones to make this general idea of just pressing print and that you could publish your book accessible. And now we're introducing all these other more specialized roles, marketing services, editorial, really specialized high quality services into the chain and making them very accessible. I think another implication of these models is that there is such a huge need for high quality publishing professionals, because even with the proliferation of self-published content now, we see so many books being self-published and a lot of them not doing well. The reason, I think, is because they're low quality. And so the fact that if there could be more service providers, then I think we'll definitely see an increase in the number of self-published books. The fact that the publishing industry is transitioning to become highly flexible is a huge thing. There's no longer any rules, and this is something that traditional publishers are feeling very hard, because it's no longer that they can wait 9 months to publish a book from the start of when they sign an author. You have to act quickly, you have to act with speed. If you start selling your book and you notice a marketing trend, it's not going to take 6 months for a publishing house to decide, well, we're going to do this differently. You need to decide in that moment quickly. And publishers that don't do that, I think, will definitely suffer, and we have seen them suffer. And then the final thing, I think, is that the roles will become highly specialized. An author's job is going to become very much to be the business of their book. Every single component of this book, specializing in marketing, in writing the book, being everything that you could possibly be, and specializing in it to make the book successful. Agent publishers, I kind of looped this into one category, because I really believe that we're going to see the role of agents and publishers merge into one. Agents now have a lot of the skills and the know-how that publishers have, and I've seen many agents in the United States that take on authors as their own, and they publish them quite successfully, because they know how to connect authors to editors, they know how to market effectively, they know where to find a good publicist. So I think we're going to see this role that I mentioned earlier, the new role of publishers and agents as a manager, as someone to guide you, as someone who provides expertise. I think we'll sort of see this become one role. And bookseller, finally, I think we're also going to see become very specialized in the way that a bookseller used to be responsible for cultivating content as well. What books they're displaying on their bookshelves, the front display affects the decisions that people make to buy books. Of course, if your book is, on an end cap in a store, it's probably going to sell more. But I think that this is going to really start to fade, especially as we see this digital book sales increasing, and we'll rely more on celebrities or book reviewers to influence what books we're reading. Maybe not celebrities, but literary influencers, I should say. And I think booksellers will be left to decide, to focus on providing exactly that service, selling books. Amazon is the best example of this. They are so good at selling books because they have the lowest price and they know what you want to buy. And at the end of the day, this is why people choose Amazon, because of these reasons. And I think if we see other booksellers start to adapt similar strategies, they'll be more successful. Okay, finally, I'm just going to wrap up with informed publishing. This is what I'm sort of branding as, the next era of publishing. The idea that we're going to finally be using information in publishing and not just going with our gut feeling, which gut feeling is great, but it's not everything. So there's 4 main components, and they're actionable data science. As I mentioned several times already, the idea that we're going to be using data science to market books. That this is one of the biggest advantages of the internet, being able to collect information about the readers and being able to use it in a way that to effectively market. Mobility. This is going to be really also a cornerstone of the next era of publishing. As I was mentioning in the previous slide, the idea that you're super mobile and flexible, that if something happens, you can adapt easily. And self-published authors benefit from this greatly because it's just them. So if something happens to their book, if they see a trend, bam, they can fix it in a moment's notice. If they find an error in their book, fixed immediately. With traditional publishers, not always like that, but I think we will see them be forced to become more mobile. My favorite one is mitigated risk. This is the idea that no longer are people going to just publish books on a whim, that, oh, I think this book is going to be good, I'm going to publish it now. I think, my gut tells me it's great, so let's do it. The idea that we're going to be able to use tangible financial value in the form of crowdfunding to understand what books are going to sell. There's an interesting story of an American author, Eric Rice, who wrote a book called The Lean Startup. And he had this idea of he wanted to mitigate the risk of publishing his book. So he did something similar to PubSlush, but only for his book. He created a website where he was able to collect pre-orders. So a year before the book came out, he opened it up to the public to start accepting pre-orders. 10,000 pre-orders later, the book came out, and he knew that this book would be a bestseller. 1, because he had a lot of money in the bank from these pre-orders, and 2, he had collected all the information about who the audience was, where they were from, where they were clicking on the website. And of course, he went on to become a New York Times #1 bestseller because of this information and because of the fact that he had mitigated his risk. And then, of course, reader involvement. It's interesting that publishers sort of forgot readers in all these years of the publishing equation, and they've kind of been the afterthought. The idea that publisher will decide, an editor will decide what books are published, and readers will read them because the editor knows best, and a lot of times editors do know best. But now we're going to see much more, I think, reader involvement, allowing people to contribute to the process and being engaged before books get published. At the end of the day, it's going to be readers who are saying, this is the books we want to read, please publish them, please make them high quality. So I think that's where we're going. And that's that. Thank you so much.